Viajar es muy rico, es una de mis pasiones, pero emigrar es otro cuento. Trae cosas hermosas, pero también retos a los que me enfrento cada día. Y al igual que yo, son muchas las personas que han migrado y que tienen historias por contar. A ellos va dedicado este podcast, mis amigos sin visa ni pasaporte. Este episodio representa la opinión de quien libremente participa y no determina o compromete la posición de sin visa ni pasaporte respecto a la migración.
Hoy estamos con un invitado muy especial, pero realmente son dos invitados. Invité a Dani Mazo para que me acompañara en este espacio porque tenemos el personaje. Yo a él lo conocí hace un tiempo largo por redes sociales. Él es australiano, es ilustrador, amo su arte y tiene una conexión muy especial con Colombia, nuestro país. Él vive hace algunos años en Bogotá y hoy nos va a contar un poco de su historia y cómo fue que se enamoró de mi tierra. Hi Eddie, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Danny, hi, how are
Hi,
you?
I'm good. Really good to to be here again in Sin Visa ni Pasaporte, the podcast.
Hoy va a ser un podcast muy especial porque pues vamos a tener la conversación con Eddie en inglés. Él entiende español, pues, pero obviamente era más cómodo que fuera en su idioma. Entonces, bueno, vamos a conocer un poquito de él. Eddie, why did you decide to go to Colombia?
Well, I first visited in 2017. I had a good friend from Bogota who I met in Europe many years ago, and he kept inviting me to Colombia, saying, "You've got to come. You would love it." So it took me about 10 or 11 years before I actually took his advice. But by the time I made it here, I was super impressed by the how interesting it was as a country to me and culturally, and how different it was to Australia. And then a couple of years later, like 3 years later, I moved here because I wanted like a change in my life. I wanted to have more of challenge, more adventure, more inspiration out of my life. So I moved out of my comfort zone of Australia and moved and learned a whole new language in a big city like Bogota. And it's been like 4 of the best years of my life so far.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Super.
What was the first thing that you do when you arrived in Colombia?
The first time?
No, what was the first activity or the first view or the first thing that you do when you go to Colombia?
I think the first time it was I went straight into Zona T in Bogota, and yeah, it was sort of I think Bogota is not what people picture in their mind necessarily when they picture Colombia. Probably Medellin is more along the lines of what people picture. Yeah, like
the serious,
the best.
More tropical, más tropical. No, me encanta Bogotá, pero en Medellín es más latino, ¿sí? Es más caliente, más sabor. Pero Bogotá tienen cosas más cosmopolitano. Y
claro,
sí, me encanta porque es una ciudad con mucha cultura. And I saw that straight away. I saw that there was lots of museums and lots of bookshops and galleries and restaurants.
Concerts.
Yeah, so it felt like a really nice introduction to Colombia. And then I visited Cartagena for the first time afterwards, which was completely different to Bogota. And so I got 2 very different tastes of Colombia in my first trip. And then when I came back again, since then I've visited like 21 different departments. So I've got to see lots and lots of different faces of Colombia, and I'm starting to get in my mind what Colombia is.
Es que voy a decirlo en español. O sea, Colombia tiene tanta diversidad que te enamoras por pedacitos de muchas cosas. Entonces, sí, es muy fácil enamorarse de mi país.
Sí.
What did you do in Australia?
I've always been in illustration and animation and that area. I had an animation studio for about 10 years with about 5 other directors. And we made short films, we made music videos, we made TV commercials. We had a really successful time with that. But at one point, the structure of the business changed, and it went more down the path of video games, because that's where the money was. But I was more interested in film and animation and that kind of stuff. So I stayed out of it at that stage, and then just pursued my interests as a filmmaker and an illustrator. And since then, Instagram really took off for me, and it's pretty much become my full-time job as an artist on Instagram.
Super.
Well, obviously you lived in Australia, and I'm curious about how or why you decide to stay in Bogota, because I think that you live in Bogota, right?
Yeah, I live in Bogota. I think for me, it was the change I needed in my life. I think I needed like a new chapter. I think I'd gotten a bit comfortable in my own country, in my own city, and the culture I wasn't connecting with the cultures like I had been. And I really started to connect with Latino culture the more I visited like Colombia, and I'd visited Argentina, and I felt like my soul was crying
Latina.
out to be. Yeah, my soul was Latina. Alma Latina. And the more I've stayed here, the more I've realized that's true. And I don't know how that's possible, because there's no Latin blood in my family, but who knows? I just think I was always meant to come here at this time of my life, and it's been creatively really special. It's been amazing for me as a person, growing and getting challenged. And, I think that it turned out being the best move I could have made. And I think a lot of people say, why would you move from Australia to Colombia? Because obviously Australia's got, probably better money, it's got better security and those sort of things. But Colombia, with the problems it has, I still think Colombia has so much to offer, particularly someone who's an artist. Like, I think artists don't necessarily want somewhere that's always clean and always safe and always everything running on time. I think sometimes you want a bit of chaos and a bit of craziness, a bit of flavor. And I think Colombia has all of those things. It's never boring in Colombia. I always say that.
Yeah, that's great. And
That's
how to
true.
connect those things, like Australia and Colombia right now in your art, like
Yeah, I like to well, I've got a lot of Colombian followers in Australia, which is really cool. So I've started sort of doing comparisons between dichos colombianos and Australian slang, and different cultural things with Australia and Colombia and US and Colombia and European countries and Colombia and stuff like that. So I like to build bridges with the art that I do, because I think Colombia is still pretty unknown in a lot of people's perspectives outside of at least outside of Latin America, and definitely outside of Colombia. So I think I like to give little clues of what Colombia is through the music, through the food, through the expressions, through the superstitions, the mythology, the nature, the geography, landscapes, relationships. Everything is fascinating to me. So I try and put all of that into the drawings.
What's the inspiration behind your illustrations?
Well, I mean, I think I've always been drawing ever since I was very, very young. So I think, I would like to say it's Colombia, but, I was drawing before Colombia. But I think I've always been interested in things that are kind of a little bit curious and strange and beautiful and funny, and a little bit different, not the sort of the standard things. And Australia's got those, and I drew a lot about that when I was a child, and insects and animals and foods. And then Colombia is like being born again, being born into a whole new world where all of these things are new to me, because there's very, very little that is the same in Australia as Colombia. So it really is like learning everything again, which was perfect for me. It was exactly what I was needing creatively, and Colombia and me became like lovers. We've sort of fallen in love with each other, and Colombians seem to enjoy what I do, and I enjoy doing what I do every day, drawing about the country, because it helps me learn. it helps me learn so much about Colombia from the inside out. And then people who are Colombian often learn from what I'm drawing, because as you know, there's so many different regions with so many different differences that if you're from Medellin, maybe you don't know about something that's in Amazonas, or if you're from Santander,
Barranquilla, Cartagena,
Barranquilla, exactly.
totalmente.
So people always say to me, "Oh, where's that expression from?" And then someone writes in the comments, "Oh, yeah, we say that in Valledupar." So it's like this kind of, it's a cool way to connect Colombians with their own culture, because I think a lot of Colombians also moved away from Colombia in the 90s and 2000s when there was a lot of problems. So they maybe have forgotten about some things, or they didn't know about those things because a lot of those regions weren't visited in that era. I guess I'm lucky to be here at a time when, you can do road trips in Colombia now to, 90% of the regions, and it's safe. And if you've got a guide, it's an amazing experience.
How many cities you visiting in Colombia right now? Many?
I visited 21 of the 32 departments. So I've sort of slowly made my way, well, not slowly, pretty quickly actually, in 3 years, because the first year was pretty much just lockdown.
Yeah.
And then I really tried to explore, this year, for example, I saw 11 different departments, a couple of which I've been to before, but most of them were new to me. And I find that travel here, compared to Australia, travel here is pretty good price. I think there's, you can go by road, you can go by air, and each place you go to is like, it's completely different. I mean, I went to Valpez this year. I went to Chocó. I went to Huila. I went to Meta, Cordoba. Pasto and Nariño. So it's sort of like, I've got so much inspiration just from this year alone, and I'm looking forward to keeping doing that. I really want to know all of Colombia, because I think if I visited everywhere, at least I've got a good idea about what makes people the way they are here.
Yeah. I think you are more Colombian than me.
Well,
Well, because obviously
I understand why most Colombians haven't been to sort of that many departments, because I think for Colombians it is still quite expensive to go to some areas, and also I think that the stigmas and the perceptions of some of these places are very trapped in, in the 2000s or the 90s or even the 80s. So people think, oh, everywhere you go, it's going to be dangerous outside of the cities. But the fact is, probably the most dangerous parts are the cities, because they've got more people. So you've got more thieves, you've got more crime, you've got more drugs and that kind of stuff. But I think these smaller cities and departments that are really in nature, if you've got a guide and you're going there with good intentions, and I think it's a beautiful way to see the country and to have a bit of an adventure.
Yeah, actually we have a great country as well.
Yeah, really do. And I think I've spoken to a lot of Colombians who say, I've never been to Chocó, I've never been to Caquetá, or what are these places that I loved. And it makes me feel a bit sad, because I think that like they would love it if they went there, but then this stigma and these perceptions that people even have about Colombia outside of Colombia, Colombians have about it within Colombia, of their own country. So I'm hoping the more I draw about these regions and the myths and the food and the music and stuff, that I can help Colombians sort of be introduced to maybe parts of Colombia that they didn't think about visiting. And then they can say, okay, well, maybe I'll go to Caquetá and go to these beautiful waterfalls, and I put them in contact with the people I know there. It's still not necessarily how it happens. I've found that most of the places I've been to, still people don't listen to me.
But I think you're a good ambassador of Colombia.
I'm trying.
I have a friend that wants to meet you.
Yeah.
She's Mocha.
She's what?
She's Mocha.
Mocha?
And
A dog.
yes. My dog, you see?
Oh, your dog.
Mocha,
Sorry, I haven't got your
and Mocha is from El Eje Cafetero.
Oh, really? Oh.
I found her. And I came with Mocha and Cappuccino, the sun.
Why didn't you call them tinto
Coffee.
and perico? Yeah.
Sí. When
Well, it makes
I
sense
found
because she found on the eje
Intellect,
cafetero, so it's like
Beautiful.
coffee. Yeah.
Beautiful.
and the other babies is Canela, but he's a small crazy dog and changed the name to Candela. And the other baby is Pistachio. Quería decir algo en español de lo que estabas diciendo, y es que hay tantos estigmas de la gente que está fuera de Colombia que muchas veces les da temor conocerla y perderse como de toda la riqueza que tiene Colombia en todas sus ciudades, en todos los paisajes, frutas, de todo, que para ti en esta oportunidad fue una inspiración y una oportunidad. Por ejemplo, mi esposo no sabía nada de Colombia y cuando él quiso ir tenía un amigo en Colombia. Entonces él le dijo, quiero ir a conocer, estábamos en épocas de COVID, entonces él dijo, bueno, voy a ir. Pero su tía le dijo, es peligroso, no vayas a ese lugar. Y si mi esposo no hubiera ido, no nos hubiéramos conocido. Entonces, así como para ti fue una oportunidad de vivir, pues de llegar a un país pues maravilloso donde ya ahora vives, que vamos a hablar también qué oportunidades has encontrado, es cuántas cosas pueden encontrar las personas de afuera cuando llegan a Colombia, como no negarse esa oportunidad por lo que hablan en los medios, en televisión, las noticias, que obviamente siempre van a contar lo más malo del país, que claramente hay problemas como en muchos otros lugares de inseguridad, pues de muchas cosas, pero también hay muchísimas cosas lindas, pues como por compartir. Entonces, te quería preguntar con eso, what career opportunities have you found through them in my beautiful country?
Well, I mean, I think I've been able to make amazing friends here and in lots of different parts of the country, and that's through traveling to these places. For example, sometimes people invite me, like one of my friends who I made in Caquetá. He has a private natural reserve just outside of Florencia, and he invited me there a couple of years ago. And I went with my best friend, and I had to convince my best friend to go because he's Rolo. He was like, "No, Caquetá's dangerous. Caquetá's got guerrillas, and we're gonna get kidnapped." And I spoke to the guy who lives there, and he's like, "No, it's changing. We're really focusing on ecotourism and that kind of stuff." So we went to this beautiful reserve there, and I made friends with him, and we saw these incredible waterfalls, and he became a really good friend. And then I've done talks at schools. I've worked with communities in barrios, where they don't have a lot of money or opportunity. I've done a few drawing classes in Medellin. I did one in the poorest barrio in Medellin, which was an amazing experience to see these children, and they were happy. They're just kids, and they're happy. I brought them some paper and pens and drawing stuff to give them to encourage them to draw, and that was really fun. So I've done things like that. I've done a mural in a museum in Ibagué. I've worked on lots of different projects in different parts of the country, and I think that keeps it interesting for me because I get to contribute in some way to the communities and the perception and tourism stuff, while also being inspired myself. So it's sort of like we both win.
Well, I think that you
Bien.
found the sense of life, like obviously help people and inspire people. I think it's good to have that goal in the life.
Because I think the good thing about art is it can change perceptions in a way that is not literal, and I think videos and photos and stuff can help too, but they're very literal. So, drawing is like a dream. So when I draw about the foods of Colombia, it's like it's a drawing of the food. It's not a photo of the food. So it allows people to dream about the flavors and what it could taste like and what food from that particular region is like. Or I draw about the animals or the customs and these sort of things. So I try and do things in a more of a dreamlike way. So because I think when people travel, you are really it's like you want it to be a dream, don't you? Like you're seeing reality, but at the same time you want it to be feel like a dream. And I think a lot of people in Colombia travel to, like, when they go on their vacations, they go to the beach, or they go to, Eje Cafetero, or touristic like places like that. But I think that maybe there's a beauty in also seeing the reality, of Colombia. Like, for example, when I went to Choco, I visited Quibdó, because I thought, okay, well, it's not a touristic city, and most Colombians don't go to Quibdó, and I wanted to visit it. And what I realized is that, okay, it might not be the most beautiful city, it might not be the most touristic city at all, but the people there and the culture, the Afro-Colombian culture, was really fascinating to me, because it was completely different to Bogota. It was like a whole different world, and different to the Caribbean coast. So I think that I like to use art to change, like I was saying, change those perceptions slowly. And as my perceptions change, then I can help hopefully change the perceptions of other people. And people still try and tell me, no, it's dangerous, or no, don't go here. But what I've learned is that you can't listen to other people unless they're from that city and they're living there now, and they tell you not to come. If it's dangerous, then you don't go. But in general, if someone lives in another country, or they haven't been to that place, they tell me not to go there, I don't really listen to them. I listen to the people who are from that department, from that city, and I find that's a better way to go about it.
Bueno, hay algo que a mí me llama, ay,
Sigue.
hay algo que a mí me gusta mucho, y es que, pues, además de que él ilustra las frutas, los dichos, las fiestas, o sea, ilustra todo, tanto que uno se llega a acordar de cosas colombianas cuando ve las ilustraciones. O sea, hay cosas que para uno como colombiano son normales, pero uno las deja como en el olvido. Y te quiero preguntar algo que me llama mucho la atención, y es que también retratas la mujer colombiana. Entonces, I portray so well the beauty of the Colombian woman, like myself, in your illustrations. What does Colombia inspire you for that, the woman?
Yeah, I think it's Colombia has an interesting relationship with Colombian women, because at the same time it promotes that beauty pageants, and there's a lot of culture around beauty, around hair and makeup and body modifications and all this kind of stuff. But at the same time, they get annoyed when people say Colombian women are beautiful or sexy or whatever. So it's a very interesting topic. But I think for me, it's like Colombians who admit, okay, women are beautiful in Colombia. It's just a fact. I think you can't really fight it. It's sort of like you just have to embrace it. It's a country where you got a beautiful mix of women, and also their personalities. I think they're very friendly and warm and kind in general. So I think it's not just about their physicality, it's also about their energy and their attitude. So I think that for me, I think Colombian women are special because they love life. They love the little things in life. I think they're romantics, and they're also very connected to both sensuality through dancing and music and food and that sort of stuff. And then also a lot of them are connected to either religious side of things, spiritual side of things. So it's a very interesting mix for me to draw about. And I think that they're very connected to their culture as well. Like, most Colombians are very Colombian. So my best friend is probably the least Colombian guy I've met here, but I think in general, people are very connected to their culture and very proud of where they're from, whether they're from, the Amazon region or Los Llanos or Pacifico or wherever. It's like people are very, very proud. And so that's why I do these drawings about ella es La Costa Caribe, or ella es Chocó, or whatever, because I think that
Caleñas.
Yeah, I think people, either the city helps define the people, or the people define the city, and either in that way, it's this kind of organic relationship between, like you're saying, you're from Medellin, and there's instant qualities that Medellin has to me that also the people of Medellin has, that are different to Bogota, it's different to La Costa, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What I need to do to have my own illustration by myself.
Well, you can order
What's the
one.
process? What's the
Yeah,
process?
the process is I do custom illustrations for both brands and companies and things like that, but also private portraits and stuff like that. And that's how I earn a living as an artist, is doing those every week. I get orders for those. So I think a lot of people think, oh, you know, he's drawing for fun. He's drawing for fun. He can draw me for free. But the fact is, it's like any job, you know, like the things I do for fun are the drawing about Colombia and that sort of stuff. But then the things I do for work are promotional stuff, drawings for people, that kind of thing. So yeah, people can message me on Instagram and they can get a cost, and different, because there's different costs for different types of drawings. So yeah, people can contact me, and that's how I work as an artist.
Super. I want. Please. One for me. You are the dad of a Colombian baby, right?
Yes.
And how do you feel about that? This is a little piece of my country.
Yeah, it was a beautiful, I mean, it was an unplanned but beautiful surprise, I like to say. So for me, I always knew that I wanted to have children in my life, and I always knew I wanted to be a father at some point in my life. And I knew that it was probably going to happen in Colombia. By the time I spent time here, I thought, okay, well, I want to stay here for my life. So for it to happen, it was like a pretty beautiful feeling. And then having him here now, and it's like my son is Colombian. It's kind of like a surreal thing to me, you know. He's like my greatest creation.
It's a really gift.
Yeah, it's like all my drawings have been creations about Colombia, and this is the most Colombian thing I've created, is a human. So he's great, and I can't wait to, you know, to explore Colombia with him and teach him about both Colombian culture, Australian culture, and I hope that he, you know, grows up with a fresh perspective of Colombia that's not burdened by trauma, not burdened by perceptions or class systems or that kind of stuff. I hope that he can borrow that from me and really enjoy this country, and not just want to grow up and leave, which I think a lot of Colombians sort of, when they leave university, they all want to go to Europe or they want to go to USA, which I understand why. But also I think there's something beautiful about staying here and you know, making the country better in different areas and contributing to either the culture or the education or that kind of stuff. And I think hopefully the younger generations can do that more and more, because I think, you know, like your generation, you kind of had to leave in many ways for opportunities, for better jobs and money and that kind of stuff. So hopefully it can slowly change.
Yeah. Referring to what you say, I think that, I don't know, I kind of feeling about the what's the word for that? The fate, the destino. Fate.
Totally. And in Colombia more than anywhere, like I think there's something about the energy here, the nature, the spirituality, that you think things happen in Colombia that don't happen anywhere else. I mean, you know, I'm 42 years old, and it's like the first time I've ever had this happen in my life, and it's not like I was a virgin, you know. Like so it's something. There's something very beautiful about life coming to me when it needed to come to me. You know, like it didn't happen to me in Australia. It could have happened many times, but it happened in Colombia in a way that I think gave me something I needed in my life that I didn't have. You know, so I think that's, like you're saying, it's a very it's a country full of fate and magic. You know, there's a lot of magic here, and I think when you visit the jungles and the forests and indigenous communities, you realize that's not just some myth, that's a real thing. You know, these things are real.
It is.
Como decía, era Gabriel García, no, Gabriel García Márquez,
Gabriel García
La realidad mágica.
Exactly. When you read those books, I think if you've never been to Colombia, you might read those books and think, oh, this is like a crazy version of Colombia. And the more you live in Colombia, you think it's not far from the truth most of the time. There's families in Colombia have incredible stories in them of both violence but beauty and strange situations happening. Transformations.
Yes.
I mean, I've spoken to people here whose there's been family members who have just disappeared, you know, or have been kidnapped or disappeared. So that's sort of the sad side of it. And then you've got the other side of it where you hear about these stories of really miraculous things happening. And I think it's definitely one of those countries. Whereas in Australia, those sort of miraculous things don't feel as every day, you know. I think here it feels like they happen. You put on the news and something strange or weird or wonderful happens every single day in Colombia.
Yeah, I think I speak with Pauli about although we are in another country different from Colombia, we still have those feelings that connect with Colombia. Like we are feeling those kind of magic things in music, in food, for example. When we prepare something here, we just feel like, oh, this is really Colombian, and it feels you comfortable.
There's a magic in those things.
Yo hago sudado de pollo. Sudado de pollo con
I don't
banana.
like sudado de pollo.
con pegado, exactly, con tejadas. Like there's a beautiful simplicity and a magic in those things. Having a chocolate, having hot agua panela in the mountain, you know. And I think that like the feeling I get from many Colombians living overseas is that they're not living there because they wanted to leave Colombia. It's like they're living there because they needed to leave Colombia. And I think that that's the big difference between somewhere like Australia is that like Australians leave because they want to leave, you know. They don't need to leave Australia. So Colombians, a lot of Colombians like you, who moved for opportunities or education or whatever. It's like
relationships.
Exactly. You've still got that invisible umbilical cord that attaches you to your motherland of La Tierrita. So
La Tierrita llama.
Yeah, and even I feel that now, and I wasn't even born here. So when I leave Colombia, when I went to USA, when I went to Australia, I missed Colombia. Like I didn't miss Australia in that same way, and I wonder what that is. So there's something happens here where it enters your cells, it enters your blood, and like, you know, there's this thing about the La Manigua, which is a beautiful expression they use in the Amazon regions, where the jungle takes you and doesn't want you to leave. So people go to the jungle. When you visit the jungle in the Amazon, you've got a feeling like you want to return, you know. And it's I think Colombia is like that in general. It's like this feeling of like something that's got a hold of you. It doesn't want you to leave, which is beautiful.
Total. Pues quiero hacer esta reflexión en español porque me siento mejor, y es que así uno migre muchas millas lejos de su país, el país uno lo lleva por dentro. Que uno se adapta a otras culturas, en este caso, pues te adaptaste a la colombiana total y vibras con eso. Nosotros, Dani en España, yo desde Francia, nos estamos adaptando a otra cultura, pero esa raíz colombiana es muy fuerte, tan fuerte que tú ya eres más colombiano, yo creo. Entonces, o sea, es algo, y como yo lo he dicho, uno encuentra colombianos en todos los lugares del mundo, es increíble. Y siempre como que sobresale la cultura nuestra. Te quiero hacer unas preguntas para que elijas. What do you prefer? Milo in Australia or in Colombia? Para los que no sepan, el Milo es australiano y yo lo aprendí en la cuenta de Eddie.
Exactly. So I broke the hearts of the Colombian population when I sort of told them that Milo wasn't Colombian, that it was Australian. And it took off in many countries, including in Southeast Asia. It's really popular as well, even places like Africa, I think. So because of the dehydrated, the dry nature of it, it's perfect for anywhere and transporting anywhere in any climate. I've got to confess, I haven't tried Colombian Milo, or Milo, as we say. The correct word is Milo. I haven't tried it because the Colombian the Colombian, well, not just the Colombian one. It has dairy in it, and I'm lactose intolerant. So the Australian one I used to have when I was a child and teenager, when I used to drink dairy, but then I stopped eating dairy when I was in my 20s. But when I went back to Australia this time, I saw that there was a vegan Milo, and finally I could have Milo again. But in Colombia, I can't have it, so it's I can't even compare. But I think in Australia it's a little bit less sweet. I think it's a bit more malty, a bit more of a malty flavor, and here it's a little bit more sweet and chocolatey. I think that's the impression I get. And here it's more like powder, more of a powdery form. And I think in Australia it's more granulated, crunchy. But
It's more like a cereal or something in Australia.
no, it's definitely like a powder, but it's like the granules are bigger.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like it's less.
I see. Yeah,
Yeah,
like
it's like,
more like cookies, like little cookies or something.
like crushed up cookies. Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So what we used to do, we used to get the glass of, it was usually cold milk. You might have a hot Milo in Australia, but usually it's cold Milo because of the hot weather. So you'd have a big glass of milk, and then you'd heap these spoons of Milo in. I don't know if you did this, but
Yeah, it's more like a milkshake.
Instead of mixing it in total, you would eat it off the top, so it was like kind of crunchy and mushy.
Yes. Actually, that's the way that I drink Milo in Colombia, like a lot of spoons, and try to have those kind of crunchy, and the sugar at the bottom.
Oh, you put sugar in?
Yeah. Well, I did.
A little. No, me too. A little.
No, we never added sugar to Milo. Like that was like, it was sweet enough.
The Colombian version of the Australian Milo.
Yeah, exactly. Now I feel like a big glass of Milo. We used to have these things in the 1980s and the early 90s. We had a Milo bar, which was a candy bar. And inside the packet, it was amazing because it doesn't exist anymore. But it was these two little chocolate bars, and inside the chocolate was Milo, like it was dry Milo. So it was like incredible. And then they changed it, so then it became like a normal chocolate bar with little kind of cookie versions of Milo. But it wasn't the same.
Yeah, we have it.
But
You've
we
got the
have
one
it
with
like
chocolate. It's like
nuggets.
Yeah, no, you need the pure. It needs to be pure Milo.
Pero
Yeah, okay.
no había como una barrita de Milo, porque
Yeah,
me parece
barrita,
que
no
sí.
sé. Bueno, la barra no
Sí,
sé, pero por lo
como,
menos eso, los nuggets que venían
Los
chocolate
nuggets, sí.
afuera
Pero eran
y
muy
adentro.
ricos.
This was more like
Muy ricos.
what are those little ones called? Chockies? Is it Chockies?
Kind of
Sí, los
chockies.
Chokis.
It was like a Malteser. Like, do you have Maltesers in Europe? The little Maltesers, they're called. They're like a little round bowl of chocolate, and in the middle it's just malt. It's just crunchy malt in the middle. They're called Maltesers.
No, sí son Chokis.
It's like Chockies.
Tienen el maní.
Sí, los
Sí,
chokis.
sí.
No, pero los chokis
Sí,
son
sí,
los que
sí.
vienen de Chito.
Yeah, it's a
Pero
bit like
como
Chockies,
Cheetos, pero
with
con chocolate.
Ay,
Yeah.
entonces, ¿cómo se llaman los otros? Bueno, pero sí sé cuáles son. Okay. What do you prefer? Soap with banana or mazamorra?
Well, because of my dairy intolerance, I haven't ever tried mazamorra paisa. So
Ay, sí.
I'm a
¿Con
bad
bocadillo o
I'm a
panela?
bad paisa. What was the other one?
¿Con bocadillo o panela?
Oh, yum. No, I'm sure if I drank milk and if I ate cream and that kind of stuff, I'd definitely try it.
But you should try the claro, which is the mazamorra without milk.
Really?
It's claro de mazamorra.
Claro es, the milk.
It's more like the water.
Like the
no,
flavor.
It's like the water
similar.
of the corn.
Without
And
the corn.
it's kind of really like a sticky, but it's good.
Sí.
Because I don't like mazamorra either. But the claro.
A new illustration.
Without milk.
A new illustration, claro.
Claro
My father is from Barranquilla, and he lives in Medellin since 18 years.
Yeah.
And he loves bandeja paisa, the first. Claro, mazamorra, bocadillos, all the food of Medellin,
Mm.
more than Barranquilla.
Yeah,
My
they're
father
very
is
different.
more paisa.
Yeah, because Barranquilla has a lot of fritos, isn't it? A lot of
Yeah.
Fritos,
Mm.
arepa de
pescado,
huevo,
Ay, arepa de huevo, qué
arepa de
bueno.
huevo. Ay, qué bueno.
butifarra,
Sí.
butifarra.
Ay, a mí me encantan. Allá
Yeah.
hay también algo que se llama peto.
Peto,
Peto
yeah.
es tipo mazamorra, pues
Yeah.
similar. A mí me encantaba.
My favorite thing and one of my favorite snacks on the coast was bollies.
Yeah,
Bolis,
like the
ay, a
water
mí
with
también.
flavor.
Yeah, but the
Yes.
flavors are amazing.
Sí,
You
me
got all these
amo.
different fruits, corozo, mango, and
Corozo,
you can
mango.
cafe con leche, all these kind of ones. But
Zapote.
yeah, I
Zapote.
haven't seen them in Bogota. I mean, in Bogota, I think they were called refrescos or something else.
Yeah, like
but
more like soda.
yeah, what do you call bollies in Medellin?
Cola.
Bolis.
Cola Román
The
en
same,
Barranquilla.
bolis.
Oh, bollies. Yeah.
Bolis.
Because I think
Yes.
they've got a few names. I think they're called vikingos in Santander, refrescos in Bogota, and yeah, I think like the more tierra caliente, tierra templada, they're called bollies.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Okay.
bolis or bonais.
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 Bonais is a brand
O
of
tetas.
bolis.
Tetas.
What?
También.
¿Sí?
Sí.
Ay, qué charro. Okay. What do you prefer? Juanes music or Rodolfo Aicardi music?
Oh, that's like choosing between children. That is hard. Look, what I love both. Let me just say, I love both. I think Los Hispanos, Rodolfo Cardi is something so unique in the world that I'd never heard anything like it. It's
Mhm.
very special. So I've got a very soft spot in my heart. But Juanes follows me on Instagram, and
Yes.
he's like he's a Colombian legend. So I'll have to say Juanes because otherwise he'll unfollow me. And
Yes.
Que mis ojos se despierten con la luz de tu mirada yo. Que mi madre no se muere y que mi padre me recuerde. Que te quedes a mi lado y que más nunca te me vayas mi vida.
yes, hi Juanes, in case you're listening. Yeah. What do you most miss? Specifics, like something very specific, not just the people or the music, but like some very specific little thing that you miss. For example, like for me, like lenguas from the panaderia. Like I love those lenguas.
Yes.
Related to food. You're asking.
Could be food. It can be food, or it
Okay.
could be
Okay.
something little small thing, like velitas, or like some little specific Colombian thing. What's something small that you didn't realize was so special until you lived in another country?
Yo, pero no me acuerdo cómo se llaman los caramelitos pequeñitos.
Oh,
Dani
yeah.
sabe.
¿Cuál es?
Panelitas.
¿Cómo es que se llaman? Los
Panelitas.
caramelos. No, los
No.
caramelitos que son de... Ay, no,
café.
esperen, yo los busco.
Coffee
no.
Delight.
No,
Coffee
no.
Delight.
Yo acá tengo Coffee Delight.
Yeah, they're good.
Caramelos. Es que no me acuerdo la marca. Esperen, se los muestro.
One of
Dani,
my
vaya pensando. Y extraño mucho el mondongo.
mondongo.
Con
Wow.
toda mi alma lo extraño, pero...
So it's usually food. Colombians usually miss food.
Ay, sí. Para mí sí.
Yeah.
Dani, ¿qué es lo que más
Yeah.
extraña?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know. I have a lot of things to miss.
Yeah.
But I think that like the celebration on December in
Yeah.
Colombia, it's
Ah,
really
claro.
special. Like really
Yeah.
special. This
Yeah.
is going to be my third time in Spain celebrating Christmas. And
What's Christmas like in Spain?
Christmas is more like Reyes, but in January. It's the January 6th. And obviously it's like the Santa Claus. So obviously it's like more gifts.
Like Australia, yeah.
Yeah.
Australia focuses around Christmas Day, which is the 25th of December. Christmas Eve is like you might see some family, you might see some friends, but generally Christmas Day is with your family, eating food, it's a hot day usually because it's December. So you might be pool parties, barbecues, you know, that kind of thing. Beach getaways with the family. And what I've noticed about Colombian Christmas versus Australian Christmas or American Christmas is that Americans and Australians and Europeans are like, oh, let's mix it up this year and let's have this, or let's change the Christmas tree to this color, or Colombians are like, no, every single year we have this food and we have this music.
Yes.
Like clockwork, like Pastor Lopez with Buñuelos Natilla. Like if you try and change it up, oh, this year we're going to have turkey. It's like Colombians would be like, no, you've got to have
Buñuelos y
this.
natilla forever.
Uh-huh.
No, and the
It's
good
just
thing,
like,
and the
you
good
know,
thing of
there's a beauty in
Christmas,
that. It's
yeah,
like
the
clockwork.
good thing in the Christmas and Colombia is that it's all December. Like I remember, it's
Even now, even November, like it was yesterday, like in
Ah,
November, people are already
desde
talking about
septiembre, desde septiembre,
septiembre,
se
se
yeah,
siente
siente que viene
diciembre.
diciembre.
Sí.
Yeah, so it's great, and I miss a lot those kind
yeah.
of feelings about December, and obviously El Combo de las Estrellas, which is
Ay, sí.
the best band ever.
Yeah.
I love them, so obviously I miss them.
Well, I get to have my first Christmas with the son, with a Colombian
Ah,
son. So
yes. It's
pretty cool
different.
because obviously he's only a baby, but I've already bought him the little Christmas hat. You know, like,
Yes, the
Yeah.
meaning of the Christmas with kids, it's another thing.
Yeah.
I hope my kids for the next year, maybe.
yeah, no, exactly.
Okay, I miss this.
What's that? I can't see you. You're not on video for me. I can't see you.
Caramelos
Oh.
Yeah.
de Noel. Son de Noel.
Ah, Noel,
Sí.
Brand Noel.
Pero I think it's Arequipe, ¿no? No son como
Yeah.
Arequipe.
Yo creo que sí.
Sí,
Vienen así, que
caramelos.
son así pequeñitos. Ay,
Sí,
eso lo
caramelos
extraño.
surtidos. Ya.
Ajá.
En galletas de Noel también.
Claro que aquí, pues, en Francia, galletas hay por montones. Deliciosas. Acá las
sí.
galletas, de hecho, en Colombia yo no comía casi galletas.
Ah.
Aquí sí.
No,
Acá sí me gustan
I'm
más.
a cookie monster.
Sí.
Everywhere I go, I eat cookies. But yeah, I remember Spain and Italy and France. Like they've got amazing cookies. Amazing cookies. Here they're a bit more like panaderia ones, which are good, or the commercial ones like Noel or Festival
Ajá.
Bridge wafers. Like I do like them.
Ay,
The-
sí. Bueno, no, pues te agradeceré en español por este espacio. Muchas gracias.
Gracias
Nos
a ti.
encanta encontrar como ese pedacito de nuestra tierra en una persona que no es de Colombia, pero realmente vive y pues
Vibra.
vibra con Colombia. Gracias pues por el espacio, porque lo que dice Dani es que uno cuando está lejos del país busca Colombia en muchas cosas. Entonces,
Gracias,
tú
Pau.
eres una de esas personas y por eso para mí fue una felicidad muy grande cuando me contestaste que sí querías participar, porque yo dije, me encanta primero conocer su historia, porque ya soy fan de tus ilustraciones, me conectan muchísimo, yo las comparto muchísimo y voy a compartir varias en el podcast para que quienes no te han conocido aún tengan ese placer de ver reflejado como nuestro país y esa pues como inmensa cultura que tenemos en ilustraciones muy bonitas. Y por último te quería preguntar, es como, what's an advice that you give to foreigners that want to
Foreigners.
stay in Colombia?
advice to give to foreign people
Mhm.
that want to stay in Colombia. I would say immerse yourself as much as you can in the culture. You know, I think that's really important. Like, don't just live like an American in Colombia or an Australian in Colombia. I think it's important to listen to the music, all the different musics, try the foods, be part of the customs. You know, don't just do the same customs you were doing in the USA or Australia, because that's not fun. You know, like when I'm here, I do velitas, I listen to Los Hispanos. You know, I never did that in Australia. So when I first came here, I was still listening to the Australian Christmas music and wanting the Australian foods. And then I think I've slowly transformed into more Colombian. So it takes a bit of time sometimes, but because you still want to maintain some of your own culture as well, you know. I still listen to some Australian music. I still watch Australian football, but in general, my life is pretty Colombian now.
Ay,
Yeah.
súper, súper, no. Muchas gracias, pues, a los dos, a Dani también por aceptar la invitación a
Gracias,
participar
Dani.
en este espacio.
Gracias.
Y nos vemos pronto en un nuevo episodio de Sin Visa ni Pasaporte, el podcast. Si te gustó este episodio, suscríbete a mi canal y a mis redes sociales o compárteselo a alguien que le pueda gustar.